Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of the reboot of the GOWEN Racing podcast here in 2025. After a week off, we're back following the Daytona 500 weekend. And we'll be talking all about that today, about the duels, the Xfinity Series, Truck Series, all included as well a little bit later on in the episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed the Daytona 500 weekend. I am joined, as usual, by Jay Cook, Mr. Fast Cook himself, but we also have a special guest this week, Karma MJO, Matt O'Brien as well. I'll start with Jay. First of all, Jay, how you doing? How you doing this week and your weekend?
I'm doing pretty fantastic. Happy to have NASCAR back. Everything feels right in the world now that we are here to complain about things and voice our frustrations on certain issues and topics and discussions of NASCAR.
How about you, Matt? How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Doing all right. Very straight to the point. I hate to start off the season wanting to complain, but I feel like that's a lot of what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to jump straight into the action of Daytona 500. We'll, like I said, touch on the duels, Xfinity and trucks a little bit later on, and we'll start right off with the Daytona 500. Honestly, just first impressions, I don't know about you guys, but it kind of looked and for me felt exactly like it kind of the expectation. It kind of turned into a bit of the fuel saving, and then it was either fuel saving or a crash fest, and I felt like that was what we expected going into it.
Yeah, I feel like it was the typical super speedway race that we get now with this new car and with this package, where it's just they fuel save, they hit the mark where they don't have to fuel save anymore, and then it's too wide. They can't really do much. And then there was a couple of times where they were able to get it 3 wide when they weren't fuel saving, but again, couldn't really do much still. It was just a massive parking lot, which I guess that's also a side effect of Daytona. But yeah, it was just a bunch of fuel saving, and then we get towards the end where they finally don't have to save any fuel anymore, and boom, people start making moves. They start doing dumb things, and we have a bunch of crashing.
It was certainly, interesting. Matt, I mean, was it kind of that was your expectation as well for the race?
Yeah, I pretty much went right according to the script that I had in mind of what was going to happen. So, except that NASCAR didn't want green flag stops, apparently.
That was interesting. We'll touch on that in a minute. First of all, they ran, I don't know, what was it, 8-9 laps, and then we had the rain come in, and then we were stopped for quite a few hours there, and then we got back going, and they even moved the start time up an hour in advance, but obviously that didn't really end up mattering at the end of the day. So we had the rain, we got going, and I didn't mind that, because personally, I know Jay at least is usually with me. We like races that end like under the lights, and I always feel like Daytona 500 should end at nighttime. So I was actually quite happy that rain happened, especially here on Monday. I wasn't concerned if it got pushed back a day because we have a holiday here, but I wanted to see it go Sunday night, and that's exactly what we got. I don't know about Matt, but Jay usually agree that it just something feels different when it's a night race, and it just feels more like almost like a spectacle when it's at nighttime, because we're passionate about how the championship race should be at nighttime.
Yeah, and there was some discourse about that recently as well on Twitter about a week or so ago about, the race should end in the daylight still. And I personally, I agree with you. I feel like it should end at night. It feels like a big deal when it ends at night. And like the same thing with the championship race. So it's nice to have it end at night. I would have preferred to not have the 4-hour delay in between to get it to that.
I agree.
Typically we get it finishing at night without that delay anymore anyways, with the sun going down at the time it does this time of year. But it was nice to have that at least, and it was also nice that they were in the primetime window. It's not like they were at night, but it was 11 p.m. It was right in the primetime window. I don't know if that helped or hurt ratings. I have no idea from that aspect if it was good for ratings. But it was certainly good to have the 500 mostly under the lights. And, I saw some people saying it feels like it's not the same thing because we also have the July race that's at night at Daytona and all that stuff. I completely disagree. I think it still felt like the Daytona 500, and it still feels like a big deal when your race is on under the lights in prime time.
What do you think, Matt? Are you okay with night races?
I I would prefer more night races throughout the season.
Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I
More
mean,
Saturday night cup racing in the summer just is what
Oh,
it should be, and we hardly have that anymore.
I'm fine with what they've done like last couple of years where we have Sunday night races. To be honest,
Yeah,
like,
Sunday nights too. Yeah.
um, I'm fine with that. I don't Daytona. It doesn't bother me that much if it ends at day or night. Even though I do think the championship race should end at night, but with it being in Phoenix right now, that honestly makes it really hard to do because if you want that to end at night, it would have to start like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on the East Coast.
Well, I think the biggest issue with that is it's not necessarily an issue with the timing of it. I think it's an issue because the championship race is on NBC, it's on Sunday, and they carry football at that time. That's the
That
issue with
is
it and
true.
why they won't do it. I guarantee they would if there wasn't football in the way, but NBC does not want that touched, and I assume they do not want to put their championship race on a different network either. So that's why it'll never happen. It may not even happen if it comes back to the East Coast because of NBC's Sunday Night Football. So, well, actually, I guess the daytime goes down, so or the night the sun goes down so early on the East Coast at that time, maybe it would happen, but still, it's football is the big concern there, and NBC is not going to prioritize NASCAR over their football.
absolutely not.
Yeah, football is king.
Football is king. It wins out. Yeah. So we got racing stage 1 there. And we saw the same thing we have seen a lot recently at these plate tracks was the whole conversation of fuel saving. 60 to 70% throttle is very common, even less sometimes, because they are trying to, well, quite simply stretch it as far as they can, make that pit stop as short as possible, and then they go hard for the final, 10 laps of a stage. And that's been just the driving trend once they figured that was the way to go at these plate races with the next gen car. And that's the only time where we can really see the 3x3x3 action, because obviously when you're running half throttle, it allows that third lane to just go up to the outside and zoom around everybody. It feels so weird because I know we love to see the 3x3, but that love isn't the same for me because it's so artificial now. Because when maybe if you're I don't know how, like, if like a casual viewer maybe feels different, but like an actual fan, we know why that's happening, and I feel like it just kind of ruins it because we know it's so almost, I guess you could call it fake, because it's just no one's actually pushing, no one's trying at that point in time. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I feel like it's the same as you said. It's just it's not natural. It's cool, it's nice, especially Talladega. I mean, there is no denying that the 4 wide for like 10 straight laps of Talladega last year was cool as hell. But we know why it happened. It's because they were fuel saving, and it's the same thing here. They're mostly 3 wide because they're fuel saving, and there are a few cars that want to push their way to the front, and they know that's their opportunity to do so. But you watch them be 3 wide and there's nothing really going on. They're just 3 wide in a parking lot. Nobody's able to make moves. They're not able to really go anywhere. Once you make your way forward to the front of the line, you're then stuck on the outside of the third lane. You're not really going to go anywhere, except for on the occasion there's a couple of cars that maybe can get out enough to pull down into one of the lower lines. So it's just a main problem with the package, with the aerodynamics of the car, and we're not really going to ever see any different until NASCAR either makes a change with the fuel cell, makes a change with how the actual aero is on the car. Something is going to have to change to force these teams to either race differently or strategize differently if they want to get out of just this 3 wide parking lot mess.
Matt brought up a point just before we started that he saw like some mentioning just remove stages and that would fix the issue. And Matt, I mean, you can expand on it, but basically, we know based off your iRacing experience, that just would not work.
Yeah, I mean, iRacing still isn't, real life, but I mean, everyone was doing the NIS Daytona 500, and I know Jay did multiple of them. And what's the one thing on your mind for 160 laps, Jay?
Every single one I did, I believe I did 3 of them. And every single one, it's just immediate. All right, fuel safe. Time to save fuel. Run in the pack. Save fuel. Don't run wide open. make it to a mark, make it as long as you can, stretch it, stretch it, stretch it, and then once you hit lap 160, it turns into chaos.
Yeah,
That feels a lot like what we saw this weekend.
Yeah, it's all about. Obviously, the thing is that stages, kind of break it up, but like, moral of the story is it's all about making that last pit stop in the race short as possible, and and that's also because once you actually get going, track position is way too important right now because the car has so much drag that the third lane's impossible, and even if you do get 3 wide, even see it 2 wide, it's a 2 wide parking line. No one can go anywhere because the car is so draggy. No one can go to a different lane on their own and make a run.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's maybe why we see this situation we're in now, where they fuel save so much, where they prioritize really where they are on track so much, because they know they can't make a whole lot of passes when they're all running wide open and they're all trying to push as hard as they can. If we had a different package, if the car wasn't so aero dependent, if it wasn't so just a giant parachute anytime you pulled out of line, we maybe wouldn't see this situation like we didn't have this situation before with the older generation of car. We had stage racing and we didn't see them constantly just fuel saving. So I feel like a large majority of the problem there is the aero of the car causing them to have to fuel save because they know where they come out of the pits is where they're going to be for the rest of that run.
Yeah, I mean that it feels like that. I think it was a little different yesterday because like even like as an Eric Jones fan, like he somehow went from 32nd to the top 10 on like
Oh yeah, there's
like within like 10 laps. I mean, but a lot of it is just a lot of it is drivers get super impatient and actually try to do something, but they get punished for trying to do something.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, and this package is so weird. It's just, it really feels like when you're in the 2x2 gridlock, if you aren't top 4, you have no chance of winning unless everyone wrecks. Spoiler alert.
Which they do now.
Especially on the white flag, because apparently you can start the white flag in 9th and be a-okay.
Yeah, and as well, I think like if we took stages away, it would probably make it worse because we wouldn't have that 5-lap dash at the end of the stages where they're really going for it again. But instead, they're just going to be riding that entire race to get to that final pit stop and stretch it out. Yeah. So it would just be even worse without stages.
And like think of it like in the second duel, right? They went to like 45 laps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before they even started pitting. Well, you're 5 laps away from doing the Daytona 500 on 3 stops. Like you would try to go 50-50-50.
Yeah. They'll just back it down to try and split it out into quarters, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, unless you can run them all down doing 4 stops because they're going so slow.
I think that you could maybe do that.
That's something that I would really like to see one year somebody do is just, okay, let's get 4 or 5 of us together as a team, as a manufacturer, whatever, and let's just go balls to the wall, full throttle, pull away, and see if we can make it work. No team or manufacturer is going to want to do that. They're not going to want to risk it, but I would love to see somebody have the balls to do that and try it and see if it would work, and then maybe we could eliminate this fuel saving thing that way. But even then, it still may not work because of the package. So it's just no team is going to try it. Why would you risk that? Why would you risk basically not guaranteeing, but putting yourself in a position where you really could be hurting yourself if you don't make up that time between the time you spend on track before they pit and the time on track after they pit? If you can make up that gap and be back where you were or back with the field or not.
Yeah, I mean, Toyota tried it at Dega Spring last year. Well,
we saw how that worked.
But like, if they didn't wreck themselves,
they'd have been fine
to win. They would have won that race by an unimaginable amount. Because like I remember watching their lap times. I was like, they're like a second and a half faster than the field.
And then John Hunter Nemechek happened.
Yep.
It was John Hunter, right? I think he was the one that caused that
It was
accident.
him. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was pushing Bubba and Eric, and then
Didn't
time.
Eric Jones miss a race or two?
he missed two.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember if he did or not. So I had a tweet today. I was just talking about the fuel saving, and someone responded to me saying, "Why is this such a big deal? They fuel save everywhere," and like you're right, but this is a totally different situation. There's not a other type of racing on the calendar outside of a super speedway where you have drivers that are spending the first 85% of a stage running at 60% throttle. This is a very different type of scenario that we have at Daytona, Talladega. I guess Atlanta. Do they do it at Atlanta as well? I don't even know. Okay. So we'll be seeing it again next week.
But it's definitely not to like the levels of what we've been seeing at Daytona and Talladega.
Right. And so as well, they did all this saving situation again just for both stages to see a debris caution come out inside of the fuel window. I found it interesting that we never did see any of the debris.
Yeah, that was something that I was.
Was that
waiting
a
for Fox to
phantom
show,
debris
and
caution?
They didn't show it. I would think so. I think we might be so back with the phantom debris yellows in 2025, and I used to really hate them, and I'm not gonna lie. I've been watching old races over the past couple of months and stuff like that. Not gonna lie, some of those debris cautions were kind of clutch. So if we bring them back on a very scaled back basis this year, if they just happen on occasion, I'm not gonna complain. But I feel like for the most part, we don't really get races that are hugely spread out, that are just being dominated and destroyed by 10 seconds by one driver with this new car anymore. So it may be only a really thing we need at super speedways to prevent the pitting, which is another reason for a team not to try and just go full send instead of fuel saving, because if they know that there's going to be a quote unquote debris yellow, then they might as well just stay with the pack anyways.
It was coincidental that it happened both stages. Inside
right in the window,
that fuel window. I was like, The first time I didn't really think about it much. I was like, oh, okay, debris. But then I noticed they didn't show it, but I'm like, okay. But then the second time, in the second stage, they didn't show it again. I was like,
Yeah. I didn't think about it until they didn't show the debris the first time. When they said debris caution, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Somebody might be, duct tape fly off or a window fly off or whatever. They never showed the debris, so once we went back green, they didn't show it. I was like, that's interesting. And then it happened again, and I think everybody's thinking the same thing now, and I'm sure it's on the minds of all the crew chiefs as well. Did NASCAR do that on purpose? Is it phantom debris, or is it back again? So I guess we'll see if it happens this weekend in Atlanta if we get in that same situation again.
I'm all for it. if it cuts out the fuel saving shenanigans, I don't really care. Throw the caution.
I mean, I don't. The weird thing is, right? It's like, do you want the fake 3-wide racing, or do you want the 2x2 parking lot?
Yeah, it doesn't either way. It's like it's a lose-lose, right? But I don't know. I personally would take, instead of the fake 3-wide, at least I want to know at least that the drivers are going 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree. At least at Atlanta, we've seen that the racing's generally better, also because handling matters. But looking at the forecast, it's going to be pretty cold. Unfortunately. So it'll probably be a little too gripped up. But I mean, that track's aging so fast.
It's aging at ridiculously fast. The Georgia summer is not being kind to that speedway, which is not a bad thing. I feel like that speedway, as it ages, it's aging a lot more than I thought it would already. At first I was saying give it 8, 9, 10 years and we'll really see where this is at. Maybe now it's give it 5 or 6 years and we'll really see where it's at. I feel like it could really turn into an old bumpy Daytona type situation where they're really having to play with the throttle. Handling really matters, and we're not seeing them just in constant 3-wide packs where they're not doing much. I mean, we've already kind of seen that anyways, where they have been 3-wide, but they've actually been racing while being 3-wide. They've been able to make moves. I mean, that race last year in Atlanta, it wasn't just the final lap where they had the 3-wide finish. That race at Atlanta last year, in person, I don't know how it was on TV, but in person was just absolutely bonkers. Anywhere you looked, there was drivers making big moves. There were people having to save their cars. There was just stuff going on everywhere, every single lap. And I can't remember the time that I have been to Atlanta Motor Speedway and been able to say that.
Atlanta's been, ever since the repave, been a blast, honestly, to watch. Very skeptical, I think everybody was. I mean, of course, there's still many that do not like the current Atlanta, but I mean, as these two just mentioned, it's changing, and the track is aging very quickly. And actually, before we move on, I did see like conversations about Daytona and the track aging and how that could like affect the plate racing, and people hoping that it kind of restores the old classic plate racing we had in like the mid 2000s and whatnot. But my question to you guys is, because I've been thinking about this, do you think that NASCAR and Daytona would let that happen, or would they just go ahead and repave the track before it happens?
I think they would. I don't think that they would want to repave that track so soon. I would imagine it's a lot of money to repave Daytona. So I would imagine that money might be a number one thing why they would not do that. But also, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't at least try it, let it age, and see what happens when it ages. It's already starting to get to that point. I will say we saw handling come into effect for pretty much every series but the Cup Series this weekend, which was interesting. You know, Xfinity, ARCA trucks, they all had issues off turn 4. They all seemed to actually have to manage the handling of their car at least a little bit. Cup, we didn't really see that much at all, and I don't know if that's just because of the car with the package or what. But it seems to be getting there for every series but Cup.
Any thoughts, Matt?
I think it's just bumpy. I don't really think handling's gonna be that much of a factor for a while. So at Daytona, I do just want to jump back to Atlanta real quick with you saying it's been a blast. I could assure you the trucks and Xfinity race will not be a blast.
Oh, what was it? Xfinity last year wasn't it the single file train?
It's gonna
both
trucks.
For both of them.
Yeah.
It is. It's just single file.
I remember because we were like dreading the Cup race. I think that happened both races, right? We were like, oh god, the Cup race is gonna suck, and then boom, the Cup cars come out, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like the race of the year.
Yeah, it's because they used the wrong package for that track for Xfinity and truck, so it's just awful.
Yeah. You would think that. Do we know if they're running anything different, or is it the same thing? No. Okay.
No, it's the same thing again.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe they just didn't watch the races last year or something. But we'll see how those go then. So we'll jump back into the 500. Stage 1, Joey Logano comes out on top after winning the championship last year. Comes out, wins the first stage of the first legitimate race of the season. Of course, the duels do have some points that are awarded there as well. But yeah, Logano wins stage 1 of the 500. And then we jump into stage 2. So we had the pit stops following stage 1. There was a few interesting blocks in stage 1, but nothing really, like, there wasn't anything that was crazy. And then we get into the start of stage 2, and like immediately things kick off with Logano's car just not going. And I think, what did they say? It was a rag that got into the throttle body.
It was plastic, I think, or it was some kind of debris that got into the throttle body, and he was not able to either put the throttle all the way down, or whatever it was keeping the car from not running at the RPM it should be running at. And so they finally diagnosed the issue. They got it fixed. I thought for a moment we were saved from Joey Logano. And then they got it fixed, and we were no longer saved from Joey Logano.
Don't worry, he saved us himself, or saved us from him himself. Him and Stenhouse's little mess. But yeah, that caused an incident. And Shane Van Gisbergen gets caught up. As Jay and I were quite sad about that. Of course, it ruined his race. But a few others went around. I don't even remember who all got caught up. I think Camlin had a piece of it, didn't he? Or no, Kyle Busch. I think Kyle Busch went around.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the incident where Kyle Busch had his
Elio was in it. Ross
that's right. Chastain and Elio Castroneves all go crashing, and a few others got some involved. Zane Smith too was that a different one?
No, there was these are two different cautions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
getting my two
the
cautions
Zane Smith
mixed
one
up
was
here.
in stage 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, that ended stage 1.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, okay. And then that's right, it did end like 2 laps early, and then Logano got the stage win there. So there was that crash, and then Josh Berry was in that one that like completely ruined his car.
Yeah.
And then they had the Logano, and everything happened there at the start of stage 2, and then things kind of, from what I remember, we just went back to the fuel saving, and then we eventually got to that debris caution. That Logano was way off the pack because they still hadn't fixed the car, and then the debris caution comes up, and then we just kind of had the rest of the stage. I don't remember a lot about stage 2 after that happened, other than I thought it was semi-impressive that Logano, like, he seemed to be working his way back forward fairly well. But I didn't see, who was it? Cindric and Blaney were kind of up there in control for a lot of that stage. And then I think we saw a lot of Chase Elliott as well kind of get up in the mix throughout stage 1 and stage 2. But I mean, it came down to it. We had Ryan Blaney make that last lap pass. He had help from Elliott to help him win that stage, passing Austin Cindric right at the line. But other than that, it really wasn't too chaotic of a stage 2. The only thing I hated, and I know you hated it too, Jay, was, like I said, it felt like it was like every 5 laps the pack was coming around and Shane Van Gisbergen's just kind of riding on the apron, getting lapped down again.
Every few laps you see a WeatherTech machine on the apron just getting past, and it hurt every single time.
Oh, mate. He was on the hot lap.
He was not on the hot lap. That.
Don't worry, Shane. 2 weeks, you can make it.
Yeah, he's just got to get through Atlanta as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets cleaned out by some shenanigans there as well. But I guess I
will say, before the crash, he did work his way to the front.
Yeah, he did.
At one
he
point.
almost took the lead.
He did seem to be having a good race going, and then got caught up in the incident. So I will say, every other time last year he ran a plate race, he kind of just always sat in the back, so didn't really have any expectations for him coming into the 500. This was really the first time that we saw him do anything in a plate race, so it was nice for a few laps until it wasn't anymore.
I don't know how many laps down he actually went, because the actual NASCAR app is quite bad, and the NASCAR app does not tell you how many laps down a driver was. They just tell you the starting position, the finishing position, the amount of points they got, and their quickest. It tells you the quickest lap time.
That's actually insane.
8 laps down. That's it. I'm surprised.
It felt more more than that.
I was thinking like 15, but he had a rough night. Martin Truex Jr. as well. He went out fairly early in the race with an accident, so that was unfortunate. I think he was in the same one with Elio and Chastain in them, if I remember correctly. So that was unfortunate. I know Jay and I have been in the same boat in a lot of things here, but we weren't the biggest Truex guys, but I warmed up to him a lot more in his last year and wanted to at least see him do well in the 500, and that was not so great for Martin Truex Jr., unfortunately. I am just noticing that SVG did beat Kyle Busch, so I guess the perks of hanging on and riding around. Busch was in the conversation to win the race to the end. So, but we're going to stage 3, and again, fuel saving and whatnot. What happened that brought out the caution in stage 3 that put us in the fuel window? Does anyone remember?
It's allegedly a debris, but we never.
It was debris in stage 3 as well?
Yep.
I thought it was only stage 1 and 2. Huh. I completely forgot about that one.
As did I. I thought it was also there was something that happened, but that really brings into question.
No, you can't. There's no conversation anymore.
Yeah.
That is phantom debris caution. Huh.
They were too scared that the field would get spread out. I guess I don't know.
I completely did not realize that there was another debris caution there.
Yeah.
So I guess
I mean, it could be on Fox because it is Fox.
I don't know when's the
Showing
last time we
debris.
had 3 debris cautions in a race.
It's been a while.
It's Gen 6.
3 debris cautions without
Pre-stages?
being shown.
Oh, Jay? I think Jay just cut out.
Jay?
Oh, hello.
Oh, there
Are
he
we
is.
good?
What were you
Oh,
saying?
live.
My fault. I was saying just three caution or 3 debris cautions without seeing the debris is it's been a long
It's
time
sus.
since we've seen something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Very pre-stage NASCAR feel to that. So, we ended up not getting any green flag pit stop cycles this entire race because of debris cautions then in stage 1, 2, and 3. So up to this point, it's been safe fuel and then go hard right at the end of a stage, and that was stage 1. Stage 2, same situation with a few bits of chaos mixed in at the end of stage 1 and start of stage 2. We go into stage 3 and we get this debris caution, I guess, and then at that point, and you could tell when they were going again because it turned back into this 2x2. They tried to get a third lane going, and it just really wasn't working, which has been the same issue since Next Gen, of course, came about in 2022. And at that point, we as well saw that middle lane and the outside lane when they were trying to make 3 lanes work. Obviously, they were pulling each other back, and it was allowing, I think, it felt like 6-7 cars on that inside to kind of just take command, and they weren't really being challenged.
Like 10 at one point.
Really, I didn't realize they got to that many. And what was it? We had Blaney up there. We had Austin Cindric up there.
Yeah,
Kyle
it was the two
Busch,
Penske-
Austin
yeah.
Dillon.
Yeah,
it was the
2
two
Penskes, 2
Penske's and
RCRs.
RCR. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
after that, I can't even. It was just kind of the typical plate race. It felt like when they're going hard, it's just they get that 2x2 because eventually that third lane does die out, and then a second lane does start going forward. There was guys that tried to make that third lane work. It felt like the whole stage there was guys jumping up there trying, but it didn't really seem to materialize a whole lot.
By the end, when they did get when the second lane did get back up to the front, there was also unless I'm remembering wrong, I'm pretty sure the third lane did as well. Both lanes were able to pull back to the front of the group and surpass the outside or the inside lane. So I guess there is a little bit of progress there with that happening, but again, still, it's just, and maybe it's a product of it being Daytona as well. When you're 3 wide, there's really there's just no more racetrack to go, but it was still just a parking lot.
You're
There
right.
wasn't a whole lot happening.
You're right. It did because I'm thinking about the Logano accident, and it was 3 wide, and they were up alongside Blaney, of course, and he was second. So I guess they somehow did get 3 lanes going there.
It took them a long time. It
took
did
them a
take
long
them a
time,
while,
yeah.
but they finally did get there. And then, in Logano was probably the one car in the field that was able to make his way from the back to the front a couple of different times. And then, we had stuff happen from there. So,
Well, let's talk about it. I think before we talk about that specific thing, I think to me it seemed like Logano had the best car in this
the
race.
Penske's overall.
Penske
all three
overall, but I
Penske's
felt
were
like
really
Logano
strong.
had a bit of an edge. He
Yeah.
just seemed to be able to control everything when he was out in front. He was able to go from the back towards the front after his issues got fixed, and then he did it because then he, of course, went to the back again because they were working on under the hood again, and he still eventually, like you've mentioned, it took him a long time, but he eventually was still that one guy that was able to get back up there. So to me, it certainly seemed like he definitely had the best car along with his Penske teammates, which shocked me to see the way it went with this accident with Ricky Stenhouse Jr., of course. Stenhouse threw a questionable block on Logano like mid turn 2, or was it? Yeah, it was going down the back, right? Back straightaway. So it was,
exit a turn 2 onto
yeah.
the back around there.
And I thought that was a bit questionable, but then Logano, to me, it was a 50-50 after seeing it back immediately. I thought it was just a one-sided deal when I saw it live, but to me now it was a 50-50 where Stenhouse threw that block. Logano really tried forcing the issue, had absolutely an opportunity to back out. You have the fastest race car there. You still had plenty of laps to go. You were up towards the front. It wasn't like it was you got to do it now. You still had some time. You're already in the mix now for fighting for the lead of this race. You tried to force it, but Stenhouse also certainly didn't really give Joey any room. But Logano also forced it in there. And of course, you get two really aggressive drivers that are in the plate races come together. You know what's going to happen. And of course, they wreck each other. And then they, of course, take Ryan Blaney out. Kyle Busch gets wrecked in the chaos. And several drivers get taken out in this silliness. And I just thought to me, it was surprising to see that Logano would do that at that time in the position he was in with the car that he had. But at the same time, I'm also not surprised given the two drivers that were going at it. We'll start with you, Jay, and just go in order, like your thoughts as well.
I wouldn't say that it's surprising from either one of those drivers, to be completely honest. We have seen on multiple occasions where Stenhouse and Logano both have done really silly things at a plate track, and perhaps especially in this generation of car, you have to be aggressive like that and make moves like that because you're not going to go anywhere without making those kind of moves. But it was a bit over the top from both of them there. I think Logano's first move where he goes to the inside when he has a run on Stenhouse, there's plenty of room for him to go there. The middle lane is open for Logano to go there. Stenhouse tries blocking it. He blocks it once. That's okay. Then he continues to try and block it. And at that point, Stenhouse should have either stopped trying to go there or Logano should have let off for him. And Logano claims he let off. But if you watch the in-car, he definitely did not. And he was getting pushed through by the pack behind him as well, to be fair. But a bit aggressive from both of them. And I really do put the blame on both. Stenhouse got away with the one block. He shouldn't have then tried to block again. Logano shouldn't have tried to continue to shove his nose in there. But that's what happens when you get those two together and they both have their mindset on one piece of real estate and there's not enough room for both of them.
What about you, Matt?
My opinion on the entire thing is it's a aggressive idiot versus unstoppable dumb beep.
That's fair.
I mean, the block was dumb, and Joey definitely had the opportunity to not be dumb.
Yeah. One guy did something dumb. The other guy had an opportunity to like back out, and he didn't. I mean, I get why Stenhouse definitely was giving zero room because if he gets forced out in that situation, he's 4 wide middle going backwards, and his chance of winning is completely gone. Because he would have been, right at the back of the pack. So I get why he was trying to really not let Joey Logano stick his nose in there. But I don't know.
Well, he had every opportunity to just go back up to the high line because the high line had.
I thought there was a car to his outside at that point.
Not yet. There was not a car to his outside until he was until the wreck pretty much started. He had every opportunity to go back up to the outside lane, but he kept trying to block, and Logano kept trying to squeeze his nose in there. They were fighting over the same piece of real estate, and neither one of them wanted to give it up.
It was really unfortunate because I just don't like. When they're gonna wreck those cars, I want it to be a racing deal, not just two clowns, fighting over real estate and not willing to live for each other. And then of course, Kyle Busch in typical Kyle Busch fashion of doing nothing wrong, and he gets wiped out in the process, and his race comes to a disastrous end there. And I said it as well. I would not be very happy if I was Ryan Blaney, who still ended up finishing top 10, by the way. But
no idea.
I was shocked when I looked at the finishing order. I was like, how in the world did he end up there? But helps when they pile up everybody on the final lap. But still would not have been happy if I was him. He was P2, and 50% of the shenanigans that happened there was your teammates doing, and it wiped you out in the process. over something that never ever needed to happen. So the caution comes out, and now it's at that point, like, I knew that I think we were had when they were going green, it was right around 10 laps to go, if I remember correctly. And at that point, I already knew. I'm like, well, this is going to be the typical, these guys are just going to be driving through each other, and we're just going to start wrecking cars now. And I would say that would probably be exactly what we ended up getting.
Yep.
It just turned into that. So the first one was the Bell one, and that one I was not surprised at all. It was Cole Custer pushing him, and it was, I think, one lap before you could see the 20 car was just really getting out of shape when Custer was pushing him. And then I'm like, oh, that didn't look good. And then they come back around like one more time, and same situation. That 20 car is like really getting out of shape. And Custer didn't seem like at that point he had any interest in lifting. And he just kind of pushed the 20 around right into the wall. And of course, we end up seeing the massive accident again for Ryan Preece. And I don't think we've ever seen a car flip over in that fashion, at least in my memory, where it does a wheelie and then the air catches it and goes up and over, which of course brings up the conversation of these cars getting airborne again. They have made all these changes with, last year they added what do we even call it?
Yeah, it was like a second shark fin.
Yeah, shark fin.
On the other side. Yeah.
Clearly nothing's worked, so these cars still get up and over.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception of why this car flipped over.
I don't think it mattered what car you had, that was going to happen.
Yes, because it might come a shock, but if that was a Gen 6 in that wheelie position, that car's flipping too. Honestly, any race car is flipping.
Any car, yeah.
Because the golden rule of cars flipping is air gets under the car. Well, when the car is doing a wheelie, well, there's not much else to say.
The air's there to take it at that point.
It's gonna take it. But I think because I know people are just like, oh, it's the car design problem.
The underbody.
Well, the argument to be had is why, and we've seen this, is like this car does this jump through the air with contact like that, and that's a problem because like we've seen it so much. We saw it with Ty Gibbs at the Clash.
At the Clash, yeah, that's true.
That's the point I was going to bring up. Is you can say that any car would have flipped like that. I don't think it would have, because no car would have taken off in the air like that from just colliding into the side of another one. We only see that with this next gen car. Now, once it's in the air, of course, any car like that is going to do that.
Yeah,
but
that's the
I think
argument
I think the only car we would have seen be in the situation is the next gen, because just something about it when they have side by side contact with another car, it just pops one of them into the air. And of course, when you're going that fast and your car gets that high up in the air, the air is going to catch it and eventually just take it. And that's exactly what happened. Now, of course, the flat body, it helps. The flat underbody definitely helped that car take off. But no matter what, it was going to take off once it was in the air like that.
Yeah, no, like once it was in the wheelie position, that car's flying. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's that I know it's F1, but like that Mark Webber crash where he goes like, flying through the air doing a wheelie. Like that's what happens when a car ends up in a position like that. It just goes flying. But
I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I thought it was one of the better scenarios. Like, obviously, it was violent. It was a nasty crash. But like the first second he went up, I was like, "Oh, cool wheelie! Here he comes back down." And then he kept going. I'm like, "Oh, this is not gonna go good."
But yeah, no, I think the big issue now is the NASCAR ain't gonna throw like a whole new car out there. They're just not gonna do it. I don't know. You gotta figure out why these cars jump is the best way to say it, right?
I think so. It's like
we've seen it so many times that these cars jump with like side contact, and I don't get it.
I feel like we're entering an era with this car that we need to do like they did with the COT after the first couple of years, where the COT, when it ended in 2012, is not the same car when it debuted in '06 and '07. It's just not the same car at all. And or it wasn't the same car at all. And I feel like we're getting to that situation now with the Gen 7 where they need to make a lot of changes to it and just make this car not completely different from the way it started, but quite a bit different from the way it is now.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, what are the changes we're looking at? I mean, you would have to think. I would assume underbody is one of the first things they would maybe
Underbody
change.
is I think underbody is one of the main things that needs to change from a racing standpoint, from a standpoint of making these things safer and not having these weird pops in the air and just the hard impacts to the driver like we have seen is another
And
conversation
that's
as well.
something they've done
There's a
well
lot of
improving.
things. Yeah, there's a lot of things with this car that needs to be changed. You could argue horsepower, you could argue aerodynamics, underbody, uh, whatever it would take to get these cars to stop popping in the air like that. I mean, we saw the COT undertake. I mean, it started with a wing and ended with a spoiler. So, if they went the same direction with changing the car in massive ways, we could make progress, but I just don't know. It for some reason feels like NASCAR is not willing to make those big changes this time around, like they were with both
Yes.
the COT and the Gen 6. The Gen 6, after just 3 years of it existing, they changed from the high horsepower, high downforce to now we're going to go with low horsepower, higher downforce, and make all these different changes. It kind of seems like they refuse to do that now with the Gen 7.
Well, it feels like they use money as an excuse every time. And
Yeah,
I'm like, you
they've
just
used
signed
money
a
as an excuse for a lot of
$7 billion
things.
deal with TV. I'm like, let's invest some money maybe into this car and fix the race car. And go on, Matt. You were about to say something?
I think the problem is to fix it is
Yeah,
a
that is as
whole new
well.
car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree.
It
We're
was
at a new car standpoint now.
Yeah, we probably are at a point where there's not much else they can do without making a new car because unfortunately the way this thing was designed, you can't just take away that underbody. If you do, well, the thing was designed to have an underbody. So now where are we at? Now what do we do to replace that? What do we do to the actual roof or deck lid or whatever with the spoiler to actually make those to make up for the arrow that you just lost all under the car? So I get that. I do get that they're probably looking at redesigning the whole darn thing at this point because they've made this thing a certain way. But I mean, they got to try something. I would feel like.
Preferably a new car. It feels like
I
they
doubt
do
we're gonna
not
get
want
that
that.
soon.
Yeah.
And it's funny
I
because, oh, go on.
the teams are not going to want to do that this soon either. They will
You're
not
probably
want
right
to
there.
design a whole new car at this point either. Even if the racing product is bad, if the fans are upset, if the teams are upset with how the cars are, they're not going to want to spend the money to develop a whole new car and build a whole new car and just do away with everything they've built over the last 4 years. We're not going to have another new car for another 6, 7, 8 years, if not longer than
Yeah,
that.
don't say that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And like NASCAR can say, "Oh, we're gonna fix it with tires." I mean, you can only get so
You can only
far.
do so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Goodyear can
I
only do
can't.
so much.
I'm a little ahead of myself, but I cannot wait for them to hype this Bristol race up again. All the tires, it's the same one as last year, just for it to not do it again.
Oh,
Yeah.
it won't. That I think it felt like a once in a lifetime situation. That's not gonna happen again.
Yeah.
But I was a believer that was too far, so I don't want that to
Yeah.
happen again.
It was
A
too
balance.
far, but
We
yeah.
needed 50% of that right there.
Yeah. Ugh.
The road course or the short track conversation is a whole different thing. This car. I feel like the only place they got this car quote unquote right is the mile and a half, and that was the issue with the previous generation of cars. That was a place where everybody hated, so they focused so much on that that now they've ruined every other part of this car. So I don't know. NASCAR has really struggled, and we're getting way off track now, but NASCAR has really struggled with deciding where they want to go with these cars.
I think, man, we just need to bring it back and like look at the Xfinity car and how good of a show they put on At every
matter
type
where
of
they go.
racetrack. Every type of
no matter
racetrack.
where they go.
Super speedways
And the
are
thing
great.
is, the thing about that car too is, and maybe I have just massive nostalgia for the COT, because I know the drivers fucking hated the COT. Anytime you hear any driver talk about it, they talk about how much they hated that car and how despicable it was. But the Xfinity car is basically COT. And the COT did put on some fantastic
I
racing,
agree.
especially in the last couple of years when they really refined that car and got it to where they wanted it to be. It put on some fantastic racing. 2012 was glorious, and that's basically what the Xfinity car is nowadays. And they went away from that because teams don't like the car. Manufacturers don't like the way it looks. It's too boxy. It's too whatever. And now we're in a situation of they try and make the cars look more like the road car, and in doing so they've potentially ruined the product they were making. I don't know, that's a whole different conversation, again getting way off track. But the Xfinity car is good everywhere, and we just can't find that in Cup anymore.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, go make an Xfinity 2.0 and make that the Cup car, but
yeah,
we can certainly look at that car and see, okay, what is this car doing right? What's different about it? What is it doing right? Let's use influences there to make a Cup car. I don't know, obviously, what goes into making a race car, but
yeah, none of us do. We're all just offering our opinions here of what we think. We could also be either completely wrong or
we are idiots. We are idiots. I mean,
exactly,
that's real.
Exactly. But the thing is if you I see people clamoring all the time, take the Xfinity car, put it in Cup, it'll be so much better. I fully disagree. I think
I don't want that.
The Xfinity car the way it is now, and you put a full Cup field in the Xfinity car, it will not be terrible, but it will not be the Xfinity package or it will not be the Xfinity show that we get currently. That's mainly because, or not mainly, but that is a lot of because of the driver group in the Xfinity series as well. The car has the capability to race good everywhere, but it also, the races happen the way they do because it's the Xfinity series. It's not the Cup guys. The Cup guys, the problem there as well is they're all so damn good. They all have the same information as each other. They all train as much as the next one does. They put in so much work at the simulator, training. I mean, they put in so much work everywhere. They're all so talented. It may not matter with the car. They all have the same information as each other. They can all see what they're doing. They can all copy each other. We may be in this situation no matter what anyways, because they are all extremely good athletes.
Just not Cody Ware.
Okay, yeah, maybe not all of them, but you know what I'm saying. The guys who are fighting for the championship every single year, the top of the top of the Cup series, they're all so damn good that there's just not much separation there.
I agree. Let's get back on track. And
yes, we got way off track.
Let's talk about the next bit was just literally the finish of this race. So we go into overtime, 2 laps. Here we go. Typical super speedway. You know what's coming. It was either going to be I was thinking it was going to be a crash coming through the tri-oval, coming to the white flag, and we were going to get that drama of, did the leader make it to the line? Did they throw the caution like last year? Like they had like all this time to throw the caution last year, and they waited until after the 24 got past the line to throw it. I was like, please just don't let that happen again. So we make it back to the white. That's great. We come back around out of turn 2. Denny Hamlin makes a move to get alongside Austin Cindric. After he got the lead, he lost the lead. He comes back to get it again. He's side by side.
I thought that was the move that won him the race.
I agree. I was like that was a Denny Hamlin super speedway moment right there. That's going to put him once again as a 500 champion. Yep. He has help coming from behind from his teammate of what's his face, Briscoe. And I'll also mention that just before the white flag, Riley Herbst did spin down towards the grass. What a save that was.
Yes.
I saw it live, didn't think much on it, and then I saw the replay like today, and I was like, wow, that was a big save. But so they come out of turn 2. Hamlin makes that move. He's got help from his teammate. I can't remember who was on the inside of or behind the 2. I don't remember who was helping Cindric. Or coming up to him there. But Cole Custer decides, you know what? I already junked a JGR car. I'm going to wipe out 2 more. He was the 3 wide outside at this point, and didn't he say he was trying to side draft, I heard?
Yes, he was trying to side draft.
Quite literally side draft, I guess, in the side of the car.
Yeah, and just car left, brother. He I mean,
Why
I
is he back?
understand trying to side draft. I understand that he's trying to win the race. Everybody's trying to win the race. But you have to be a bit more aware that there's going to be cars to the left of you there. There's going to be somebody filling up that hole that you just created. There's going to be a car there. And, I mean, the cars are also on your left side. Karma, you can maybe speak on this a little bit. You have experience with cars on your right side and side drafting. But but when the car's on the left side, you can clearly see that they're there. It's a lot easier to see that
You got a spotter telling you he's there.
I'm sure the spotter's in his ear saying car inside, top 3 wide. But he just turns the thing left and destroys the field.
He caused both the last 2 accidents.
Yeah, he did.
How many cars did he wipe out in the last 10 minutes of this race?
Quite a lot.
25.
25. That's probably a safe number to go with. And he also said,
And that's
he also said on the Bell incident at that point, you can't lift.
Yeah, no,
yes, you can.
Definitely can. That's
yes,
what I was
you
about
can.
to say. You definitely can. You can lift, and it's also I can't lift in the final 3 laps. Well, okay, if you can't lift, at least push him decently. At least push him squarely. For 2 straight laps, as Gary mentioned earlier, you can watch Christopher Bell getting sideways, having to catch his car because Custer keeps pushing him to the left side. He's not pushing him very squarely, and that's why that wreck happened. He just pushed right through him and spun him around.
I think that's the main problem that we have now is these guys, I can't lift. I got to just full beans
Yes, you can.
bulldoze
You
through
most
this
certainly
guy.
can.
They can,
Which
and
I
they're
guess
like,
that's
we can't.
Also, that's maybe also a car thing. Maybe they feel like they can't lift because they know that if they do, the momentum is gone. So that might also be a car issue as well.
Deal with
but
it.
Still, you can lift.
It's better than junking 20 cars.
Don't kill the field. Yeah, exactly. Lift.
It's frustrating.
Have a little bit of self-preservation.
And also just dumb blocks too.
Yeah.
Yes. The blocks are.
Like I can like go back, like think of every plate race. Tell me how many has the winner done, like won by doing desperation blocking?
Oh, I can't think.
Maybe Ryan Blaney's the only one I can think of at Talladega.
Harrison Burton last year. I don't.
Yeah, but he didn't like.
He didn't throw like a massive block that was like,
yeah,
holy shit.
yeah. It didn't screw
But he
anyone.
was right on the edge though.
He was close.
Like,
he was
yeah.
close.
Blaney at Talladega on Eric Jones is the only one that I can think of from a few years
That's
ago.
a block,
Other than
that's a
that,
door.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, okay,
I'm junking you.
that's
Yeah.
fair.
Like, look at McDowell at Talladega last year. Tried to throw that huge block, wrecked himself, and then
Eric Jones,
wrecked everybody else.
2022 Talladega. If he doesn't throw a block, he just wins.
Chase Elliott from a few years ago, I think it was 2019 or 2020 at Daytona. That wasn't for the win, but he threw a huge block in turn 4
Well,
and
the Benedetto, right?
destroyed the field. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it. Obviously, the circumstances were weird, but guess what? A driver that didn't throw a block won.
Yeah, he was.
The race.
What position was William Byron in when they started
Ninth.
wrecking? 9th.
He was ninth. No, he was ninth at the line. He was 7th exiting 2.
Okay.
Okay, still.
Yeah, but like Stenhouse last year, he won by not blocking. At Talladega and his 500 win.
That is true.
I think the problem is we have the Joey Logano's of the world that have. I mean, obviously blocking has been a thing in NASCAR for forever, but the Joey Logano's of the world have created it have done it in such a way that other drivers see it and they're like, well, I got to
do
try
it
this
too.
I got to try and be aggressive as well. And as dumb as Logano's blocks can be, and as many times as they've created incidents, there's nobody that can block like Joey Logano. If you try and recreate what he does, you are going to kill the field. Even he does it when he blocks sometimes. So he's really the only one in the field that can aggressively block and sometimes get away with it, but sometimes he doesn't either.
Oh,
It's like if you look at plate racing, blocking generally does not help you.
No, it generally does not.
It generally ends your race.
it is statistically proven that it doesn't really work.
And yet they still do it because I feel like if they don't, they will get past and they will lose their shot at winning. So
I
might as
think
well throw the block anyways.
They're just hoping to be that one guy that does it successfully,
Yeah.
because eventually someone will succeed at it. and you're hoping that you're going to be that one that throws that terrible block and also comes away with the win. And it sucks so bad, because and then you got Cindric and Hamlin were the two front guys that didn't throw any block, and they get wiped out.
No.
Yeah.
And of course, William Byron barely got. Oh, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say it wasn't even a block that got them wiped out either.
No, yeah, that's true.
It's super aggressive trying to side draft and just super aggressive anything, and just Custer in the last few laps just lost his mind and killed the field a couple of times.
And William Byron barely got through the previous incident, and again barely squeezes by.
That one too.
Hamlin was coming right at his door, at his quarter panel. He gets through. Reddick got through, but Reddick did hit the wall, which obviously hurt his momentum.
That was it.
I wonder if Reddick didn't hit anything, if he would have got there, because he got close. Like he got right up towards his bumper.
He definitely could have built a run, but that's a situation when Reddick is by himself, Byron could have probably blocked and gotten away with it because there's nobody pushing Reddick and giving him a huge, massive amount of momentum. So Byron could have still been able to block maybe, but Reddick would have had a shot, I think, had he not gotten put in the wall.
And also Jimmy Johnson got through that, ended up third behind Reddick and Byron. Yeah, shout out to him. Nice to see him actually get a good finish in a next-gen car. But Byron ends up winning 2 back-to-back Daytona 500 champions. I feel like he's taking over. Everyone always calls out Alex Bowman for walking into these wins. Have you looked at William Byron's career?
Yeah, Byron.
How many times?
He's had these moments for sure. And I feel like my opinions on a lot of things NASCAR-wise have changed a lot lately, because you asked me 5 or 6 years ago, I love the way plate racing is, I love the playoffs, I will defend them to my death. Now it's, okay, fuck the playoffs and change something about the way plate racing is, because you could argue even maybe 5-6 years ago in the Gen 6 where it was, you still had the big ones, you still had close racing where they were 3 and 4 wide. You could argue it still took some skill. It still took the drivers who had good cars up at the front. It still took handling, all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, it genuinely does just feel like whoever makes it through the crash on the last lap is going to be the one that wins. Whoever puts himself in the best position to, I don't know, get a good push. Like the luckiest driver is the one who wins on these play tracks now, is what it feels like.
Definitely. The skill aspect just seems to be getting further and further away, like every year that we do this, these super speedways.
It just feels increased tenfold with this new car, and I think it's a lot of it to do with the package. You could still again argue that with the previous generation, with the previous generations of car, but just with this one, for some reason, just something about it makes it just feel even more luck oriented than any other previous generation of car.
I'm sure I'm happy that Talladega's in the round of 8 this year.
I was thinking about that today, and I'm like, oh my god, that's crazy that they actively said, let's determine the 4 to fight for a championship with
a
Talladega survive the last lap big one situation.
Oh, but you already know the 4 wide clickbait of round of 8 drivers, 4 wide. This is beautiful. Like
60% throttle,
but they are don't show them the timing. Don't show them the speed.
And it's all going to come down who avoids the big one on the final lap.
Yeah,
I think that's crazy.
And also if they throw a caution or not.
Will they throw? Let's talk about that right now. So this ties in.
We spent just an hour. Over an hour on just the Daytona 500.
Fortunately, the other topics are pretty quick. After the 2 that we're going to talk about next, they get pretty short. So let's talk about that last lap. This is a whole topic here that also ties into the duels. So just for reference, before we I guess we can just talk about the duels a bit, because it was similar aspect of we saw a lot of more chaos in those that really kind of took the whole fuel saving out the window. They did it themselves there, and then we had the ending of the second duel. The first duel, Bubba Wallace ended up winning that. Great drive by him. Actually, he had a great drive in that first duel. But the second duel is where the drama was. and that ties in to the ending of this 500. So they crash off of turn 4, final lap, second duel. Eric Jones, Austin Cindric, they're racing to the line. Eric Jones is the first one to the line, not by a lot, but he beats the 2 car to the line. But out of turn 4, they had that crash, and they threw the caution. So we end up having to sit there and wait, and they determined Austin Cindric was just barely ahead at the time of the caution. And that was already a bit of controversy. And then we come to Daytona 500, and they wipe out more cars than they did in the duel on the back straightaway. Some cars were hitting really hard in that crash, and I was like, oh, here comes the caution. No, we stay green. They keep it green all the way through back to the finish line, which I think was great. I do think that was great, but they need to stay consistent, because in the matter of 4 days, we did 2 completely opposite calls, and one was a caution. We have a much more significant accident, and we keep it green on the final lap, and that's frustrating. But I do think that was almost like a peer pressure. I think NASCAR was actually like thinking about that, and the fans keep complaining. I think they said, okay, we're going to keep it green, which is cool, but we had 2 different calls in the same weekend with the same situation, a big last lap crash. What do we make of that? And hopefully, like for me, I'm just hoping that, okay, I've always wanted them, unless there is a like huge incident, car barrel rolling, something, car up and over, or a really heavy impact that's like, okay, we need to get safety there. They need to keep it green. If that, like that wreck that we had on Sunday, final lap, it was a big wreck, but nothing looked bad. It looked like a typical big one. I'm like, okay, we keep it green. They did. They just need to keep that consistency, because obviously now I think we're in a position of guessing, okay, what are they going to do now?
The only thing consistent in NASCAR is that they're going to be inconsistent.
That is true.
That's unfortunately the one constant about NASCAR. I feel like it's a shame that this is the one time that we get a situation like that where they do keep it green, and there's no chance of a race for the win. It's already settled. Reddick doesn't have a chance to get to Byron. We already know who's going to win. So it's unfortunate that was the one time where they keep it green, that we don't know, or we do know the results pretty much already. I agree with Gary, though. I do think unless they crash right past the line, or unless they have some kind of huge incident happen, or a driver flips, a massive impact, whatever, they should keep it green to the line. They should let them race. So I hope maybe that is going to be the thing that they do from now on. I doubt that they will. I think that was just a purely, we've gotten so much flack about this directly from this weekend. We can't have this happen in the biggest race of the year again after getting already a bunch of shit about it. Let's just let them race it out, and then we'll never see this happen again. We'll get the yellows from now on, and it'll go back to being, if they wreck on the final lap, no matter what, it's a yellow. So I don't know if that's going to be their new protocol or not. I kind of hope it becomes that way, but I don't think we'll see it be that way anymore.
Eric Jones fan, do you have any thoughts on that one? Well, I know you do.
Like I was disappointed Thursday, especially because it was like, bro, we're literally 1 second.
Yeah.
We are literally 1 second away. And then Friday, right, in the truck race, it was kind of the same thing. They wrecked in 4, but they still threw a caution. And then Sunday has the worst crash of like all 3 of the races, and it's like, oh, we're keeping it green. Let's go. And I mean, honestly, them not throwing a caution, that is actually what made me the most mad. Because you did it twice, right? You did it in 2 races. You threw a caution, and then you changed to it.
Yeah, I can see why people would be upset about it.
Even though I think what they did in the 500 was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like you should have done it based on what you were doing.
Yeah, and again, that just comes into the thing of NASCAR. Just they're always inconsistent, no matter what. And who knows? Maybe that does start a trend where they won't throw the yellow anymore in the final lap in situations like
Yeah.
that. But I doubt it. I think that was genuinely just a moment of we have gotten shit on this past weekend. This is our biggest race of the year with our most viewers. Give them a chance to race, and then any other race this year, we're just going to call that a yellow. So again, and that's going to piss people off more when it happens later in the year, and they go back to calling yellows again. We're going to look back on that one moment and be like, well, why was this the one you did not throw a yellow when you've done it every other time? It didn't really matter. It didn't affect the finish.
Yeah, the winner
in
didn't
any
change.
way. It didn't affect it at all. But it's just one of those things where NASCAR cannot be consistent. And they refuse to have consistency in anything that they do.
And don't forget, Trucks and Xfinity also ended under caution. So 2 previous
Xfinity
nights
was
we had no
different.
green finish. But I'm just like, they wanted at least a green finish this weekend
Yeah.
somewhere.
I mean, like Xfinity, they wrecked at the just after the line, and then like it was. Like,
yeah, that one
literally,
was
like, the
that
whole
needed to
field.
be a caution. That was okay. They throw the
Yeah.
caution here, which I hated again because I was just like, oh my god, why did these guys keep wrecking? But it sucks. And I also wanted to I bring up is like the prestige of the Daytona 500, like the current era that we're in, where it's just Bodos don't lift, junk half the field if you have to. Really does kind of feel like it's taking away from the prestige of winning a Daytona
Yeah.
500. It doesn't, like, I don't feel like when William Byron has just won 2 back-to-back Daytona 500s, they talk about, oh, this is a life-changing, career-changing moment. To me, I'm like, I don't look at you any higher than I did before you won a single Daytona 500, because it feels like such a luck of the draw to win this race now.
And I really hate that I also agree with you on that. I don't want to feel like the Daytona 500 is not a huge deal like it used to be. But you just look at the winners of the race recently, and it's like, well, okay, it's a big deal that these guys have won the Daytona 500, but also does it not at the same time then diminish the Daytona 500 a little bit when you have guys like Michael McDowell and maybe Byron not being one of those names, because Byron is a definite race-winning, championship-winning driver in the Cup Series. But when you have finishes happening that way every year for the 500, when you have a surprise winners winning the 500 every year, then at what point does it then become, okay, perhaps the 500 is not that big of a deal to win because anybody can win it?
What about you, Matt? Do you feel the same, or?
I'm pretty mixed. I mean, a win's a win, but I also believe how you win is important too. So.
Yeah. And I don't want to feel that way. I
I
try
don't
not
either.
to feel that way. I don't want to feel that way, but it's just like it's starting to get to a point where it's like, okay, the last 5 years, we've had not lackluster winners of the 500, but definitely guys who I would not expect to also be winning other races as well.
Cindric in
winning the
22.
500. Cindric is not as bad of an example.
I felt like
but
he actually
yes.
earned that one though. That 500.
Yes,
he walled his teammate,
Yeah, I
but
agree.
I mean, he held them off and got back to the line and was able to do the job he had to do. The McDowell one, I mean, he just split through the Penske guys drunking each other. And who even won 2023?
Stenhouse.
Oh, that's right. I don't recollect anything that happened there, so I can't even put an opinion on that one.
Boyer. Oh, they crashed.
Oh, Larson's head on into the wall. Final lap, Daytona 5. Oh, they're crashing.
They crashed. Just a quick thing. Did you hear Larson and Gordon after the race?
I heard what Gordon said about Larson.
About like how it's like Larson's like, I make all the wrong moves.
Yeah.
Jeff Gordon.
I noticed. Oh man.
So funny.
Larson, he was not pretty. He's never great at these races, but I don't know. It almost looked like the 5 didn't have what it needed either. Like when he was the pushing role, I never saw him actually able to get up to that car's back bumper and push. So it certainly seemed like he didn't have what he needed. But obviously, towards the end of that race, it felt like everywhere he was going was the exact wrong lane to be in. So.
Larson fans, you better hope you win a race in the round of 8.
You got to, yeah. And Martinsville's in there. Well, he's won Martinsville now, and he's run decent. But Vegas you'd be putting all your cards in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my pick actually. When the 500, I was like, Larson's gonna pull it off. He wasn't even remotely close to pulling it off. He was never in the conversation that entire race. So. Yeah, it was, as we said, it's unfortunate kind of the direction we're going in with this race, and I don't see it improving. I as well just want to bring up a point before we kind of like drift away from the actual 500 race. I did see a clip from Denny Hamlin's podcast like just before we started, and he was saying that we should go back to speeding these cars up to like 200 miles an hour again.
Yes.
And also it could spread it out just a little bit more, and it'd be safer to be doing that than this 85 miles per hour and everyone's all over each other, on top of each other, just full beans bulldozing.
When they're full beans, they're going like 195.
All right, well, let's add 5 more mile an hour.
But no, Hamlin makes a good point though, and this is going back to a different conversation again, I suppose. But there was a clip that I also saw last night of Mark Martin from, I don't know, I would imagine somewhere in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where he was talking about how one thing he said stood out to me specifically. He said the cars have outgrown the racetracks, meaning that
it's
cars,
like F1.
They have the capability of going like 230 mile an hour, but NASCAR just dials them back so much to create this specific type of racing that, you almost make it more dangerous being slower, because they're all grouped up together in a situation where they can easily crash, have these big impacts, have these gnarly flips. All these kinds of things happen because you're forcing the drivers to stay together. If you allowed them to run the speed they could run at these racetracks, you would get some cars spread out. So I see where Hamlin and Mark Martin 20 years ago, where we're coming from with that, is that we're not letting these race cars drive at the capability at the speeds they have the capability to go at. And it's once again creating kind of this false manufactured racing, quote unquote.
I don't even know where to go on about that one. Other than that, you're right. Yeah.
Nothing more to add to it. It's just, it's the cars could go faster. They're not. NASCAR's not letting them go faster to create pack racing, to create this drama of a thing, which, I mean, I guess when we get cool races, it's cool for the fans, but it does create situations for the drivers they don't like being in. And at least with this specific package, it creates a bit of a mess when they can't really do much. They can't really pass.
I love pack racing.
I do as well. I don't want pack racing to go away.
I don't want pack racing to be gone. It's just the pack racing now is very different from the pack racing we had 10 years ago. It's still a pack, but it's different. And I just wish we could go back to what we used to have, where it wasn't the luck fest and just, we still had big ones, and, there was still some chaos mixed in, but the winners, you had the Denny Hamlin come in and take over, the Dale Earnhardt Jr. era. We were going way back for that one, but now it's just like we said, just kind of too luck based, and you always just seem to know exactly how these races are going to play out now, and it's just a last lap accident and who can survive it and whatnot, and it's unfortunate. It's where we are, and we get to run it back this weekend at Atlanta in another pack race. It'll be interesting to see how that one goes, but I wanted to talk about the Fox broadcast of this race and your guys' thoughts. Of course, I mean, Jay and I talked about the Clash last time, and we were not, as usual, very impressed. And the zoomed in shots, they certainly like to zoom in this weekend as well. I don't know, it gets annoying. There was a point they're going through the tri-oval, and we're like zoomed in on the middle lane of cars, and I'm like, there's two other lanes, and I can't even see them.
Yeah. The overall or go ahead, Matt.
The broadcast itself was
I didn't hate it.
For Fox standards, it was like the best thing you've ever seen, which is still not good. Like the side-by-side thing, I guess it's the plate race thing now in general, because I know NBC did it at the end of the year. So I guess it's just a thing now that every plate race is going to be side-by-side, which is great.
That is a huge improvement.
Yes. But like a certified Fox moment was near the end of stage 2. They come back from a side-by-side, right?
I know where you're going.
5 or 4. It's like 5-4 to go in a stage at a plate race. What do? They show Joey Logano's and like Penske's accomplishment.
Yes, full screen.
Can't even see the race. I'm just like, what are we doing? There is 4 to go in a plate race stage.
Or there was the one. It was like 15 to go. And the 2 lanes are starting to come towards the front, and then they're like, let's go under the helmet with Kyle Busch for a biography on him.
Yeah.
I'm like, at least we can still see the racing, but I'm like, there is not a single person that wants to see this right now. We want to see full screen action of this race. That's 15 laps to go in the most prestigious race of the year, not let's go under the helmet with Kyle Busch.
Yeah. Yeah, that Joey Logano thing, I wanted to punch a wall.
The thing that got me the most was they go and do side by side, and it's like, okay, cool, thank you for the side by side. They come back from commercial, and then
our own
side by side segment. And it's like,
so bad.
Okay, now it's a full screen sponsored segment. What are we doing here? Why was this not just a commercial? You just welcomed us back to the race, and then immediately it happened 2 or 3 times where they did that, and it was really, really stupid. The Toyota thing was kind of nice, which I think we've had that the last couple of years anyways. The Toyota All Out segment, that was nice. But it was just really obnoxious to throw us into commercial and come back from it and be like, all right, here's a sponsored segment. I know we just got back from the ads, but here's another ad. Like, oh my God, why?
As well, like, and this is just nitpicking, but I don't know, it was really frustrating when, they're in this big pack and we'd come back from the side-by-side commercial, but then they do like a full 10-second full screen of like, showing like a couple cinematic shots of the drivers walking in like the production room and stuff. And I'm like, we don't need to be seeing this. Like, we need to be here watching the action right now, because it's just like one guy can screw up and we're going to wreck the field, and we might be missing it because they're doing this little cool comeback from the commercial little introduction. As well, like,
they've done that for like 20 years though.
But it still annoys me in those moments where they're in a huge pack and anything can just change so quickly.
Okay, that's fair, I suppose. I don't find that part that big of a deal, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from on
rear
that.
bumper cameras too.
Yeah.
How many times we got to see that?
With that? They've had their obsession with the onboard cameras, and specifically the bumper camera, for years now. It's so incredibly dumb. I hate how much they use it.
That one caution, I think it was the one that ended stage. No, it wasn't the one that ended stage 1. There was whatever one it was where Hamlin went down to the apron and slid, but he saved it. I can't remember what happened. I don't remember, but it was Hamlin went sliding down to the apron because he was towards the back, saved it, but it was on a side-by-side commercial, and it was from a rear bumper camera, so you couldn't see what was happening in front, and it just got on my nerves so bad. But then they came back, and then they, of course, like showed what happened. But yeah, it's just so annoying. But I mean, as Matt mentioned, I think that the broadcast overall was probably about as good as you're going to get from Fox, which is still not good. I do think the last lap call by Mike Joy was it was okay, but then you got Clint Boyer like talking over him.
Shut up.
he just loves to keep going. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I
just so
can't
annoying.
stand. The booth overall makes me want to stab my ears with pins so I can't hear anymore. They just, I mean, the chemistry is not there between the three of them. It's there a little bit between Clint and Kevin, a tiny, tiny bit, but not as much as you'd expect from guys who have been teammates for 25 years. Um, but it's just the chemistry's not there. And when you think about it, the old Fox days with DW and Larry Mack, they would get
Oh,
so excited and hype about things that it would also then cause Mike Joy to also be excited and hyped about things. And maybe that's just a thing of Mike Joy's gotten older. Maybe he doesn't care as much about the sport because of things and decisions and stuff that they've made. So maybe it's a Mike Joy thing and not just a who's with him in the booth thing as well. But I mean, it's just you don't have that energy anymore. Anytime DW used to talk, he'd be ready to jump out of his shoes with whatever he was talking about. He could be describing like how somebody looks under yellow and he'd be ready to jump out of his shoes. Like just anytime the guy spoke, he spoke with enthusiasm, and you just don't have that at all with Kevin. Kevin barely gets above a normal monotone. Clint, he sometimes gets excited, but he also just he can't form correct sentences. He can't form complete sentences. So I don't know. Just the booth overall is the worst part about, or not the worst part, but it's one of the worst things about Fox, and it's not getting any better.
um, you know what broadcast was good this weekend though? The CW, the CW Xfinity broadcast.
I don't know
Go on.
I don't know if I have a single legitimate
Oh,
complaint about the CW broadcast.
No.
let's use this
There was
as our segue into Xfinity. But yeah, go on.
There was a couple like broadcasting like commentary things, but like that's just gonna go away with time.
Oh yeah, they're gotta like work it out.
Yeah, I enjoyed everything. Definitely need to get used to the bottom ticker.
I agree.
Yeah.
It looked
very
good.
offset. It looks good. It's just so off, like putting being on the bottom.
Yeah, like I've never seen any racing do a ticker of that scale, because it's a big ticker.
TNT used to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I never got to see TNT broadcasts actually as a kid, so I would not know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it looked
TNT's
good.
ticker used to be on the bottom, and it used to be, if I remember correctly, it was even a little bit bigger than the CW one, but still the CW one, it is something to get used to. We haven't had it for a decade, so it is something to get used to for sure. But I like it. It's just something to get used to.
The only like critique that I actually had was so when they're doing the restart, the choose cone, like if I didn't see the actual cars, I was like, okay, which cars on the inside, which cars on the outside, like which row, because it was top and then bottom, but I was like, is the bottom row the inside or is the top row the inside? But now that I think about it and say that out loud, I think I'm realizing I'm just an idiot.
You might.
Yeah, now that I say that, I don't.
Yeah.
Let me scratch that. I understand it now. I'm just a moron. No, it looked good, and as
You
well,
said it.
like they did a good job. They used real pictures of the drivers.
Yes,
They
they
had
used
gr-
pictures of the cars.
Yeah,
as
they
well.
had graphics that showed the actual car, so you could connect the driver to a car. I was like, oh
Yep.
my god, they're doing a really good job here. Commentary, I thought Adam Alexander was. I've never thought he was great. I always thought he's solid. Still feel the same. I think he's solid. I don't think he's incredible. I think he's solid. Jamie McMurray, fantastic insights. Parker Kligerman, I thought was okay. I thought their chemistry, their first time with those three together, I felt like their chemistry was, as of right now, of the three booths that we have, was by far the best. Between like the Truck Series booth and the Cup Series booth, they by far blew both of those out of the water.
On trucks.
Let's not talk about that broadcast. We won't talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. I'm happy that Jamie McMurray's finally got like an actual full broadcasting role, because every time he's done it, you're just like, this guy needs.
He has to be
there.
here.
If you have a booth of Mike Joy, Jamie Mack, and Kevin Harvick, I won't say that's perfect, but that would be a very solid booth for the Cup Series on Fox, and instead we have Clint Boyer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But Xfinity race though, I mean,
It was okay.
Go Burr.
Yeah, Austin Hill took over until he had his issue with what was it, the axle or
We
something?
were
I can't remember.
saved.
Then you weren't saved.
Jesse Love was like, hold
Yeah,
on,
I
I'm gonna
mean,
come up here
I
and win.
don't.
I don't
It's
have a
not like I
problem.
have a hatred against the entirety of RCR, so I was okay with Jesse Love winning that race, but
Yeah.
it's just Austin Hill, please.
Yeah.
We got to do something to get rid of him on these play tracks.
I tweeted it out. It was like the moment Austin Hill was out of the race. Jesse Love, you freed us. I wouldn't say freed. I would say under new management.
Same team's gonna take over.
Yeah.
But I mean that I think Austin Hill though shows exactly what we're missing with the Cup Series plate
Yes.
races is we
No,
have
I
the
agree.
Xfinity car still has that skill to it. We got this guy that's like
Yeah.
unbeatable on these types of tracks, and it took his car breaking to actually defeat him.
Yeah, he continues to every single time we go to Talladega, Daytona, and Atlanta, specifically Daytona and Atlanta, control the field. Cars go with him because they know he's quick. He makes decisions and almost determines how the race goes based on how quick he is and the moves that he makes. And we just don't get that in Cup anymore. And that's, again, circling back to a conversation that we've already had. But yeah, Austin Hill, as much as I don't like him, I'm not a fan of Austin Hill at all.
Big bully
The
and a hypocrite.
the type of dominance he shows in the Xfinity series is what we miss in the Cup series currently. I mean, you think back, we had the Dale Jr. dominance on the play tracks, and Jeff Gordon was able to win a bunch of play tracks at one point, and just drivers were able to do things to determine the way they wanted a race to go, and we don't have that anymore. But again, we've talked about that already.
Yeah, it was a good race though. It sucks that it ended under caution. They of course still even although the plate racing is better, you still have the big pileups towards the end. But I mean,
Yep.
you as well
It's still
have
the
all these
Xfinity
young
series.
drivers that are still learning and trying to get their way to the Cup Series. And of course, you have some new drivers this year that are some up and comers like William Sawalich that we're going to be paying attention to. Connor Zilisch, the obvious one. I don't think. I mean, he's not even in question. That's a future Cup star, no matter what, in my opinion. Honestly, like him and Jesse Love, maybe like the only two current Xfinity drivers that I think can, and I give a huge edge to Zilisch as like they could be future, stars in the Cup Series. But I think it's going to be fun to watch Zilisch progress throughout the season because he still does not have much oval experience at all. But he did really good with his oval races last year. So I think once he gets more comfortable and figures out the ovals, I'd be quite fearful if I was the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if for a good amount of the season we get the Connor Zilisch and Jesse Love show. Of course, there's a bunch of other drivers in the Xfinity series that have speed, that have
Sheldon
talent, that can
Creed?
win. But I said can
He's
win,
going to
Yuri.
win this year.
You think he's going to?
I think he's going to win 2 or 3 races. He's not going to just go win one finally. He's going to win 2 or 3.
I will say for Sheldon Creed, it's not like he's always finishing second and always having these things happen to him to where he just doesn't have the talent to be in second place. He does have
He's a
the
good
talent. He
driver.
has had the moments to win races, and things have genuinely gone against him. He genuinely has some bad luck has had some bad luck go against him. So I do think a win is coming. A win is coming for him, but it's also just kind of funny for the memes that he won't win this year.
It would be funny if he finished second like 10 times and didn't win.
Yeah.
It's destiny.
I would give up. I couldn't take that. Matt, do you have a favorite Xfinity driver to pull for? Or?
No.
No. I didn't have one after Larson left Xfinity. Then I was a Chase Elliott fan at that one point,
yeah.
and then crazy how that changed.
Yep.
And then after that, I never had a favorite Xfinity driver again. I just watched it for the fun of it. And then SVG came in, and obviously big fan of his. And now I've actually got another one to pull for with Zilisch, which is nice. And I think Jay is also right there with me on the Zilisch, right? So
Yeah, I do. I would say
he's
that
pretty
Zillish is
cool.
by far my favorite Xfinity driver. I like him a lot.
I
So
have a favorite truck driver.
you have a favorite truck driver? Who?
Yeah, I think we both have the same
Time.
favorite truck driver. Yeah, I like
Who?
Corey Heim a lot.
Oh, Corey Heim. Okay, I don't have a favorite truck driver. But I certainly enjoy
It's
watching.
genuinely insane. He's still stuck in the truck series. For
That
the
is
third
crazy.
season.
If someone doesn't step up big, it gonna be ugly.
I mean, obviously he came up short of the championship, just a victim of the format and the way it is. Who won it? Was it Majeski that won it last year?
Yeah.
And the Truck Series race was. I only caught the last bit of it when I hopped in the Discord server, so I can't really talk about much of it. I'm gonna have to really kind of rely on you two to form an opinion because I really, outside of the last 20 laps or so, I didn't see any of it.
For a truck race, for the truck series, it was about as good as you're gonna get at Daytona. It was pretty all right.
Yeah. Because there's been some truck races where they just can't stop wrecking.
Yeah, I feel like
that was definitely the best truck race at Daytona that I can remember. Like it was like 3 wide racing and everything was working.
I feel like the truck series 10, 15 years ago was a series that you genuinely could look at and be like, all right, there's some decent good racing. And then it transitioned to where, dear God, what is this truck field? I think we're getting back to now where there is a decent amount of talent in the truck series, and it's getting back to being a series where there can be some respectable good racing, and it's not just the genuine pathetic shit show we used to get, 4 or 5 years ago, even really a couple years ago too. I mean, the field nowadays, I think there is a lot of genuine talent in it, but it is also still the truck series. There is also still a lot of young drivers that are going to lose their minds, that are going to lose their heads and do some dumb things. So I don't expect this Daytona race to hold up to where it was relatively clean. There wasn't a whole lot of stupidity. We will still see that this year in the trucks, but I think we're transitioning again to where the trucks is becoming another watchable series again, and they're actually going to have some good racing back.
Or they've got actual up and coming stars again, Corey Heim, Rajah Caruth, but there's also those new guys like Ruggiero and Andres Perez.
And there's also people going to the truck series that are veterans of the sport in different manners, whether they're going there because they want to try and get back to the Cup Series, or they're Cup drivers going down to truck because they want to race for a few races or whatever. So the skill is actually there as well. It's not just people that are being paid to drive the truck series because teams need a driver. There's actually drivers with skill going there to either develop or to race the trucks because they want to or have to.
Yeah, it does feel like we're slowly kind of getting back to that truck series that I as a kid loved. Yeah, I think back to the Austin Dillon era of truck series, and Ron Hornaday was still around, and Kyle Busch would come down in those series, and I personally miss the days where there was Cup regulars down there. I felt like it as well. It helped keep some of those younger drivers in line a bit more when you had the Cup guys come down. I personally, I did hate it at one point, but right now it'd be all for if you could get Cup guys for 10 to 15 races instead of the limit of, 5 races they can do?
I think it's 5, yeah.
So I wouldn't be against giving them a 10 to 15. Okay, they can't do all year, but you can get a good chunk of it in. And I think it's always just good for the young drivers to continue to learn. And as well, it's hard in trucks. It's not as hard in Xfinity nowadays, but in the truck series, it's really hard to get a judging point of who is going to be able to go the whole way when there's not a Cup guy that can come down very often and kind of put them to the test, right? I remember, and it's crazy to say now because Austin Dillon is so mid, but back then I was like, man, Austin Dillon is going to be quite a Cup driver at some point. Yeah. Obviously, we see how it's turned out, but at that point I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to be really good, but we don't really get those opportunities now. I mean, Kyle Busch is doing 5 races this year.
That's Daytona 500 and Coca-Cola 600 winning Austin Dillon you're talking about, by the way, that you're disrespecting right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did he win that Daytona 500?
Definitely didn't have to completely destroy Eric Almirola.
How did he win last year at Richmond?
Definitely didn't have to destroy Joey Logano from a mile back
How
and
did he
Denny
win?
Hamlin to win it.
How did he win the Coke 600?
Definitely didn't
No
have to save a
mileage.
bunch of fuel.
What other races? Oh, Texas, when no one could pass, and he had his
Yeah.
teammate.
Yeah, no one could
Yeah.
pass, and apparently RCR was the only team smart enough to take 2 tires. That a lot of crew chiefs should have got fired that day.
That was crazy, and that was such a sad.
inexcusable.
That was such a sad era for the sport at the time.
Yeah.
Has Austin Dillon ever won a race straight up? Well, he would have won Richmond straight up. If
Yeah, he technically that would have been his first one.
That
where
would have
he
been the
straight
one.
up won that race on merit,
and then he
and
got
then he threw it all away.
he got straight up
Yeah.
beat on a restart, and then threw every bit of his respect that I had for him out of the window.
Yep.
That was something.
Yeah.
Oh, what an interesting. I think we're in for a really interesting season. Actually, I guess final bit that we'll go on is let's just talk about the upcoming weekend, which is Atlanta. All 3 series racing this weekend, right?
Yes.
Trucks are also there.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, trucks are there, and then they have a few off weeks because they're not back till Las Vegas. So yeah. Another super speedway, but like a hybrid. Still get your pack racing Atlanta Motor Speedway. It's put on, I mean, great cup races since it's been redone. So honestly, I am. And what I've learned is, as we talked about earlier, to kind of not really use Trucks and Xfinity to judge how the cup race is going to
Not
be.
at all.
So I'm not really concerned about the cup race, even if those 2 races are terrible. So I think we're going to see the same thing though. Trucks and Xfinity are going to be like that single file, and then Cup's probably going to be a banger. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So, what do we have? Let's just do like win predictions for the 3 series. I'm gonna go Trucks. I'm gonna go Corey Heim again. Actually, I think he's gonna go back to back. Xfinity, I'm gonna go Austin Hill. Shocker. And then-
aren't we?
Don't worry, I got a wild one for the Cup race.
Oh boy.
Daniel Suarez is gonna go
Jesus.
his worst finish there.
Save his ride once again.
His worst finish at Atlanta since it got redone is 2nd. So he's gonna go there and he's gonna win again. And yeah, as Jay said, he's gonna save his ride from Connor Zilish, who's ready to take it over next year. How about Pitbull? By the way, like all of a sudden just said I'm out of Trackhouse. I thought that
yeah,
was
that
interesting.
was the
Weird.
statement as well. Made it sound like it was
Odell.
not Pitbull's decision.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Odell thing. It's like what?
Well, he Dale is his thing. He says, so I think that's what he was.
Oh.
Yeah. Dale is what it is. It looks like Dale, but it's Dale.
Dale. Jay, who do you got winning these races?
For trucks, I'm gonna go with Grant Enfinger.
Oh, that's fair. That's a good one.
I think he's won there before since the repave, I think, but he's usually always a strong plate racer, so I'm gonna go with Grant Enfinger. Xfinity, I'm going with a wild pick of Austin Hill.
Woof.
And then Cup, I think Hamlin finally gets it done at New Atlanta.
That'd be an interesting one. He's not had great luck there since.
No, he has not. He's
since the
had some
repave.
decent races, but he's gotten wrecked a lot.
Matt, what about you?
Trucks. You two have not checked the entry list, so I'll be taking Kyle Busch in the trucks.
I know he's in it, but I don't think he's gonna win it.
Xfinity.
So change it up.
We are not changing it up. We know that Austin Hill will train that field single file for how many laps that race is. Cup. Dartboard. Throw a dart at a dartboard.
Eric
There's-
Jones.
No. We have as an Eric Jones fan, I have learned that nothing good ever happens at this point.
Where did he finish in the 500?
12th.
Okay. So who do you think is gonna win the race then?
Probably somebody that will. Oh God, you know what? No, Ryan Blaney.
Ryan, that's a solid pick. Very solid at the super speedways, especially in next gen era. But he did win some in Gen 6 too. Who won the last Atlanta race? Logano.
Logano.
And he went on his playoff dominant championship run.
Yeah, dominant.
Yeah, what was it? Harvick said he had the best final 10 races and that's why he won the championship. I'm like, no.
No,
He did
showed
not.
up for 3 races and, yeah, he was so good.
He didn't show up for 3. He held on field on one of them.
Oh, yeah, God, you're right. Oh,
He was running like 15th before that.
Yeah, he was running 15th at National too.
Yeah, I was talking.
had
He
the
wasn't even in the
cheating
top
fuel
10.
tank.
He wasn't even in the top 10 when the 2-car crashed. And he won the race.
It's just so cringe. I'm so happy you guys see how bad the system is after trying to support it for years.
Yeah, Jay and I. It took last year to get us straight about it.
Yeah.
And I think Joey Logano's great. Actually, he's one of my top 10 drivers. I think Logano's awesome, but that just is shameful way to win a championship that he did nothing wrong in. That we talked about. Nothing he did wrong. He took advantage of a system that's very flawed, and he came out on top.
Every driver has the exact same format, so I mean, it's at the end of the day, you can complain about the format. They all race the same thing, so I mean,
doesn't make it any better though.
The way that he won it, but they all raced in the same format. They all had the same equal opportunity. However, it doesn't make the format any less stupid.
Yep.
I think that's a good way to end it right there. We'll be back next week from Atlanta. Unless you guys have any other points you want to add?
Nah, I have nothing.
Survive Saturday's horrible racing.
Oh yeah, it's a truck and Xfinity doubleheader, isn't it?
Yep.
It's like 1 p.m. and like 5 p.m. or something like that.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes. Cup Series, I believe, is at 3 p.m. on Sunday. So hopefully no rain. It's we're 1 race down in the season, and I've already had enough of weather impacting it.
Yeah, good luck with that, bud.
Jay did mention it was like supposed to rain on Sunday or something. So, oh boy, we'll see how that goes. Nonetheless, we'll be back to talk about it next week. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for us. Episode 2 of the GOWEN Racing Podcast. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. We had 9 streams, I think it was, on the first episode on Spotify. Can you believe that? 9. Woo!
We're famous.
We'll see how it goes for week 2. I think we're going to title this something clickbaity like We've Lost the Daytona 500. Something like that I think would go. Maybe get like 2 extra streams. So
yeah, there you go. That might work.
I think that's what we'll roll with. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Take care. Stay healthy. Stay safe. And have yourselves a great day.